I am the well-rounded girl. It's so great to be back after a nice weekend off. But I love doing this. It's so good to be back, and it's great to have you all here tonight. If you are watching live, then be sure to use that chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to chat with me anytime during tonight's reading. You can use it during the reading if you think of something that you want to say. There's any thought that you might have that you want to put out there that you'd like to add. You can do it afterwards when we can have a nice discussion about what you thought about the reading, any questions that you have, thoughts, whatever. Use that chat box on the right hand side of your screen. If you are watching the archived video, please use the comment box to share any thoughts that you might have, any questions. We can still have a great discussion down in the comment section. So please use both of those, whether you are watching live or archived. Tonight's episode, in fact, is sponsored by Amazon Prime. Please check the free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime, and that includes so sorry. What? I was trying to, it froze up.
Okay, well, you want me to let you know?
But it froze up?
Or see if you were on. Why does she want me to see if you were on, or you thought you were on, but you really weren't?
No, it froze up, so let me go. Hi everybody, I am very sorry about that. It looks like YouTube is having some problems again tonight, which I am so sorry about. I don't know why this is happening. I had some trouble the other night, so hopefully this will go smoothly tonight. I will be trying to keep an eye on it, so if I keep looking up and down, it's because I'm checking things. Yeah, so let's pick up where we were. This series is sponsored by Amazon Prime. The link in the description is a special link that you can get a free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime, which includes free 2-day shipping on all Prime items, which is a ton of items, so please check it out. Also, you get unlimited access to the Prime movies, music, books, and so many other benefits. So please check it out, and it's a special link so that when you sign up for your free trial through that link, you're showing your support for this series. So please go click on it, sign up for your free 30-day trial today. Also, sorry, okay, I just got something on Facebook. You can also, if you aren't using the chat box or the comment section, you can also find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, The Well-Rounded Girl, and you can talk with me there. So if you don't feel like talking on YouTube at any time during this video, if you are watching live, you can do so on Facebook. You can message me, you can comment on my posts on Facebook. I just use it as like to keep updated with you guys about what's going on, to let you know each night, to just confirm that there is going to be a live reading tonight. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And for any of you that happened to watch the archived video or were trying to watch live last Friday, the last day of the week, I read this devotional, but there were a lot of problems with the live stream, so just for y'all's benefit, I am going to do it again so that we don't miss this one, because it was a really good message last week. So I'm going to be doing it again, and if at any point the video starts to freeze up, try chatting with me in case I don't see that the video freezes up. Hopefully the chat will go through. Yeah, so use that chat box anytime during the video to tell me any thoughts that you might have, any questions, anything you'd like to add, to the message of tonight's reading, or if you're not watching live, please use the comment box below. And I will try and keep an eye on the video to make sure that it doesn't freeze up again tonight. And like I said, if you guys notice it freezing up, please be sure to let me know either on Facebook or in the chat box, and I will try to keep checking on it during the reading. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And tonight's reading is called Lashing Wind, and the Bible verse is, "Choose life, that you may love the Lord your God, that you may obey his voice, and that you may cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days." Deuteronomy 30:20. White, billowy clouds quickly rolled through the blue sky as I brushed Amarillo, who was tied to a short and gnarled pine tree. The summer pack trip brought us to this high mountain meadow aptly named Half Moon Park. The small, lush, grassy spot was crescent-shaped and seemed suspended like a shelf under the sheer tan rock wall of Scapegoat Mountain, which was part of the Continental Divide. The rim of the cliff above us soared to an elevation of 9,200 feet. The opposite edge of the meadow dropped down a steep, rocky mountain slope to the valley floor miles below. I picked up the saddle pad and placed it on Amarillo's back. "Are you ready for a great ride? We're gonna go over the top today." Grabbing the saddle, I flipped it onto his back. Tightening the cinch, I looked across the meadow. The wranglers were loading the last mule. The guests stood with their horses ready to mount and ride the trail. The wind gusted, tugging at my black cowboy hat. I grabbed it and pulled it down tight. This trip was my first time riding the Divide. I was amazed at how the wind had screamed over the top of the cliff from the time we rode in 2 days ago until now. The clouds looked like they were part of a movie that was stuck in fast forward. I didn't realize that up here, this amount of wind was considered calm. Before the morning was over, I would experience the ruthlessness of the high country weather patterns, and my life would be changed forever. While I buckled on my chocolate brown chaps, suddenly the temperature of the wind dropped several degrees. That feels like a storm's coming. I glanced at the blue sky. It was impossible to see what the weather would bring because the storms came in from the west. West was the backside of Scapegoat Mountain. I slipped the bit into Amarillo's mouth and slid the headstall over his ears. The first of the black billowy clouds rolled over the lip of Scapegoat. That doesn't look good. I stepped into the saddle and trotted across the meadow. All the guests had mounted their horses. The crew was busy forming their pack animal strings by tying the mules together. At the far edge of the meadow, Larry, the boss, sat on his bay Arabian gelding. Studying the sky, he zipped up his brown vest. I rode up to him. "What do you think?" I asked. Larry frowned. "We need to get out of here." He gathered his reins. "I'll lead and have the guys pull string behind me. Then you, followed by the guests. There's only a handful of guests. Will you be okay?" I nodded. A gust of wind snatched at our hats. Simultaneously, we grabbed them and held them tight to our heads until it passed. Larry motioned his arm to the crew. "Come on, let's roll." He turned his horse and rode up the trail. Leading the mules, the crew lined out behind him. Turning in the saddle, I shouted above the wind to the guests, "Follow me!" I pulled in behind the last mule. The first quarter mile, the trail ran under the rock wall, which blocked the main force of the wind. I settled into the saddle and studied the trail in front of me. In 100 yards, it narrowed to a 2-foot wide ledge. forming a gray ribbon that seemed to barely cling to a shale rock slide that was littered with boulders. The trail traversed the steep side hill all the way to the top of the mountain. Amarillo's hooves soon clattered on the narrow shale trail. The saddle creaked as I turned to see how the guests were doing. The blood drained out of my face. Ominous black clouds blasted over the rock wall. I'd never seen anything like it. The clouds shot in a stream over the cliff, and then rolled in an arc to the floor of the meadow, hammering it. Like an enormous Ferris wheel, the clouds curled backward, sweeping uphill. They crashed into the sheer rock cliff and got sucked up the face and into the clouds, blasting the top of Scapegoat. They rolled in a circle over and over again. Faster and faster they mushroomed, seeming to consume the mountain. A stiff blast of wind hit me. With my right hand, I caught my hat and held it to my head. I didn't dare let it go, because it might fly in the face of the horse behind me and cause a wreck. The wind bellowed down the rock slide. Another guest slapped me like a 2x4. Momentarily making me lose my balance. With my right hand, I grabbed my hat. With my left, the reins and saddle horn. I leaned into the wind. The gale rumbled around the mountain like a freight train. Like an invisible wall, a blast buffeted us with so much power it pushed Amarillo sideways a few inches. I gasped. Amarillo stopped. The wind was deafening as it roared past my ears and beat my batwing chaps against my legs. Breathlessly, I looked down my left stirrup. Just inches to the left of Amarillo's hooves was the edge of the cliff. If the wind gusts again, we're going over, I thought. And shale is flat and smooth on top. It's worse than walking on ice. If we get blown off, Amarillo won't be able to get his footing. I shuddered. He'll probably break a leg while he struggles to stand, and I might fall underneath his weight and get trampled. I held my breath as I reined and urged him to the uphill side of the trail. Still hanging onto my hat, I tucked my head and glanced back at the guests. Their eyes were squinted against the wind, and their faces were tense with fear. With white knuckles, I clung to the saddle horn. How much stronger can the wind blow? What if it sweeps me out of the saddle and throws me into the sky like a rag doll? I focused on the mule in front of me. Another wall of wind collided against us. The mule in front of me braced itself as it skidded sideways, knocking rocks off the edge of the trail. I watched them bounce down the cliff and out of sight. Another blast pounded us. In horror, I felt the gust shove Amarillo toward the edge. My heart pounded. If the storm picks me up, how high will it toss me before I plummet to the ground? The black mushrooming clouds swallowed us, blocking the sun, making it as dark as twilight. The storm whipped us with dust and pebbles. Even the mountain rumbled and quaked under the force. Amarillo dug his hooves into the shale, trying to hold himself on the narrow ledge. Holding my breath, I squinted, still clutching the saddle horn. The wind's icy fingers pried at me. I knew it wanted to pluck me out of the saddle. I squeezed my legs tight, gripping the saddle, and leaned into the wind. Terror filled me as I watched Amarillo's hooves dance close to the edge again. God, what do? I pleaded. Help us. My horse's hooves slid another inch. He braced against the wind. He can't stay on the trail with me sitting in the saddle. I'm creating too much wind resistance. Holding the reins and my hat in my left hand, I slowly put my weight in the right stirrup, the side by the wall. Amarillo skidded to the edge. Rocks tumbled off and disappeared. I held my breath. Quickly, I slipped my leg over the saddle and swung to the ground. I lifted my leg to take a step, but the wind fluttered my chaps hard and grabbed my leg. With all my might, I pushed my leg to the trail and dug my leather boot into the shale. Maybe I should shed the chaps. But I knew if I took them off, the wind would snatch them away like a kite and send them sailing, maybe into the horses and mules behind me. That would scare them half to death, and they might stampede off the cliff. I've got to leave them on. I glanced back at Amarillo. He shouldered into the wind and moved to the center of the trail. I leaned into the wind. With my left hand, I held my hat to my head. With my right, I held the reins. I took a small step forward and dug in my toes. Mid-step, the wind buffeted me, shoving me off balance. I crouched lower, but my 135 pounds was nothing compared to the ruthless wind. For my next step, I didn't lift my foot off the ground. Instead, I skidded it forward. That's better. I glanced back at my horse. The wind didn't seem to be thrusting him sideways as much. I looked back at the guests. They, too, had dismounted. Black clouds boiled around us as we picked our way through the boulder-strewn trail. One grueling step at a time, the mules advanced. Their packs created so much wind resistance they swayed back and forth. They'd take one step forward, and the wind would pound them as they put one foot to the side to catch their balance. Callously, it tossed them around the trail. A couple of times, it looked as if the wind momentarily lifted them off their feet. What if the wind picks them up and tosses them down the mountain? I begged God, please do something. The closer we got to the top of Scapegoat, the more violent the wind became. My ears throbbed from its deafening roar. We were lost in the dark and wicked inner sanctum of the storm. It churned, pushing and pulling us every direction. Then the black clouds vomited hail. Ice marbles were strewn at us from every direction, bearing down on us. Suddenly, a gust grabbed my batwing chaps and pulled me off my feet. My shoulders slammed to the ground. I clawed the trail, my fingers clutching at loose stones. Then I saw a boulder up ahead. Using all my strength, I heaved my body up and toward the huge rock. I reached it and gratefully wrapped my arms around it. Clinging to it, my mind whirled. Thank you, God, for this rock. My fingernails dug into the indentations of the boulder. I forced my thoughts on God. God, you are my rock. You are my salvation. In you I shall trust. Strength flowed through my spirit. You are my rock. You are my salvation. In you I shall trust. The more I focused on his word, the bolder my thoughts. You are my deliverer. You will get us safely off this mountain. You are almighty. You are all-powerful. I felt something nudging my back. I turned and looked into Amarillo's muzzle. His soft brown eyes looked at me questioningly. Tears flowed down my cheeks. The wind swept them away. Corralling my emotions, I forced my thoughts back to God. You, God, are more powerful than this storm. We will get off this mountain. Help me be strong for the guests. I looked down the trail. Although the wind buffeted the guests, they were still standing. Slowly they picked their way. I'm glad that each of them has at least 50 pounds on me, and none of them are wearing chaps. 10 feet up the trail was another boulder. Okay, Rebecca, you've got to move. I scanned the trail. Pulling my feet underneath me, I crouched. God, you hung the stars in place. You hold the winds in your hands. I know you love me. I'm trusting you to tell me when to move. Focusing on the next boulder, I waited. Suddenly, in my spirit, I heard, "Move!" Adrenaline rushed through me. I pushed off from the rock, still holding the reins. Staying low to lessen the wind resistance, I shuffled forward, digging one boot into the shale and then the other. Behind me, Amarillo carefully picked his way. Only one more step, I repeated over and over. Once again, I dug in my boots and wrapped my arms around a boulder. Okay, God, we did it. I need you to help me again. A torrent of wind howled down the rock slide, whipping the hail away but blasting small stones at us. With white knuckles, I hung onto the boulder. I squinted and held my breath, not wanting to inhale dirt. The next boulder was about 8 feet away. I waited. God, you are my strong tower. You are my fortress. You are my shield. Once again, within, I heard, "Move!" Up the trail I went, capturing one boulder at a time as God urged me forward. Gradually, the wind eased. By the time we topped Scapegoat Mountain, the brunt of the storm had passed. Although the wind still howled, it now sounded like a whisper. I stepped to the side of Amarillo. Good job, buddy. I swung into the saddle and waited for the guests to arrive and mount up. I was numb and in shock. I rode down that steep trail that wound through the pines. My mind churned. What happened back there? At the beginning of the storm, I begged and pleaded with God to do something. I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. The wind was powerful enough to sweep me away. I felt totally helpless. But while I clung to the first boulder, a new understanding about God flowed through my spirit. He didn't want me to beg and plead. He loved me. All he wanted from me was to have faith in him, in his power, in his ability, and in his love for me. As I lost focus on my circumstances and tightened my mind on who he is, his strength flowed through me. When I firmly stood on his word, he gave me the strength to survive and persevere. Sitting around the campfire that night, all of us shared our personal battles of weathering the storm. For me, clinging to the boulder gave me a nugget of faith I will carry with me the rest of my life. I'm in awe of your mighty power, Lord. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to build my faith on you, my rock. Amen. That is the end of the reading tonight, but I invite you guys to please share any thoughts that you have with me, any questions that you have. Use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, or if you are not watching this live, you can use the comment section below, but I would love to know what you guys think. I honestly just please share your thoughts with me on what you thought about tonight's reading, any questions that you have, anything you'd like to share about maybe if you've gone through something similar to this, or if you could use this, apply it to your life in some way. As I wait for you guys to chat with me, I'm just going to share a couple things that I have, a couple thoughts that I have on tonight's reading. As a performer, I am up in front of a lot of people a lot of the time, and before I go on stage, I always pray that God would use me in some way to minister to those people, and also to help me not to be nervous, to trust in Him that He will get me through. I put my faith in Him that He will quiet my nerves and that He will make my memory strong so that I can do the best that I can while up on stage in front of people. And He never fails. He never does. And I think that's something to remember if you are going to be doing something new or with people that you don't know. Just remember that God is always faithful. He doesn't want you to be nervous, and of course, sometimes God won't take that nervousness away, but He will use you in a way that you can minister to other people. And that's pretty much all I've got for tonight. If you guys have any thoughts, please share them with me. There is a little bit of a lag time between what I say and when you hear it. So if you have any thoughts, I encourage you to send them to me as quickly as possible so that I don't stop the stream before you guys chat with me. So please, please, please share your thoughts with me. I want to know what you guys think, any thoughts that you have. I personally have seen, this is a very personal story for me because I've seen this at work many times. One of my favorite sayings came from a movie that I watched, and it's just that sometimes God gives us circumstances to make us stronger. A woman asked God to help their family come closer together, and a man told her, you know, you asked God for this, but do you think He's just going to automatically make your family come closer together? Or do you think He's going to give you opportunity to help your family grow closer together? If a person asks for patience, God isn't going to just give them patience. He's going to give them opportunities to be patient. And it's the same way here, I think. God isn't automatically just going to give us faith in Him. He's going to give us opportunities to put that faith to work so that we can see it. Because if He just gives us that faith, we don't really realize it. But if we can see Him in action, that's when we realize. Thank you very much, Nicole, if you are still watching. I appreciate you being here very much. And to all the rest of you who were watching tonight, thank you so much for watching. It is so great to have you here. Don't forget, I do this stream every weeknight at 9:30, so join me here hopefully every night. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Again, this series is sponsored by Amazon Prime. Click the link in the description. Sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime today. That is a very special link just for me, and that if you click on the link and sign up through that link, you show your support for this channel and for this series. So please check it out. Amazon Prime is great. I know you'll love it. Thank you to all of you who are watching tonight, and please join me again tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. I will see you all then. Good night.